Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. My name's Swain Lee, and I'm going to teach you how to make some Brussels sprouts.
Okay, so starting off, we have our ingredients. We have some non-stick spray, some olive oil spray, two types of barbecue sauce, one a little sweeter, one a little spicier. We need 2 bags of Brussels sprouts. We have our bacon. We're going to do 5 strips, steak seasoning, roasted garlic powder, cayenne pepper, rosemary leaves, crushed black pepper, and Himalayan salt. For our utilities, we have a cutting board. Hopefully this is a little bigger, so we need to put all the ingredients on. Mine was a little smaller. It worked out. It was just a little harder. Up top, you see a cloth. This is just to pull out our food from the oven. Then we have a knife, a brush for the barbecue sauce. You can get these at pretty much any store. Aluminum, and the cooking sheets. We're actually going to need 2 of these cooking sheets, one for the Brussels sprout, one for the bacon. I obviously only have one shown here. And our first step in making our Brussels sprouts is going to be to cut them. So basically you can see here I'm laying all of the Brussels sprouts out onto my cutting board. And then I am basically cutting the butts of each Brussels sprout because they're inedible. When you try to eat them, they're hard and tasteless. And then I'm going to be cutting each one in half. I skip over here, but it took me about 10 minutes or so to cut off the Brussels sprouts for the 2 bags. Kind of hurt my fingers. It's all good. This is kind of the longest step. And you'll see in a minute here an individual Brussels sprout being cut. Basically, I'm just kind of putting them into 2 piles, the butts and the finished Brussels sprouts. So here we go. You can just see how I cut the butt of the Brussels sprout, turn it over, and cut it in half. So for our second step, we are going to be adding the aluminum foil and just tearing that off. We are going to pat it down, and you can see it right there. Make sure it all fits. Then we are going to take some of that olive oil. It's a little healthier than other sprays, which is why I choose it. We're going to shake it up, and we're going to spray a pretty good coat onto the cooking sheet. Moving on for step 3, we are just going to pile on those Brussels sprouts, all of the cut ones. You're going to want to make sure that the Brussels sprouts don't overlap so that the spices go on there evenly. I have 2 bags of Brussels sprouts, and it fit the cooking sheet pretty well. If you have any more bags, I'd suggest getting another cooking sheet for the Brussels sprouts because it kind of filled it up, and I don't think I could put another bag in there without it overlapping. So yep, you can see me here kind of spreading each one out, making sure nothing overlaps. And then we are going to be adding our spices, seasonings, and salt. So here I add the Himalayan salt, basically just going to spread that on evenly. Not a lot, but not a little. There we go with the salt. Then I have the black pepper. A little more black pepper than the salt. The salt kind of drains the Brussels sprouts, gets rid of any moisture that's in there. So we don't want to put that much salt in there, but the black pepper can have a little more. Then we have the roasted garlic powder. I'm going to put a bit more on the Brussels sprouts than we did with the salt and black pepper. You can see me putting it down. Then next up, we've got the cayenne pepper. This is going to add a little bit of color to the Brussels sprouts, making it a little more fuller in color, but it also adds a little bit of tang to the flavor. Then we have my favorite, the steak seasoning. This has a ton of flavor. While it may seem a little weird to put on Brussels sprouts, it goes really well with the bacon, the barbecue sauce, and the other spices. So next, you can see me adding the rosemary leaves on top. Don't need too much of this. Don't want it to take over the flavor profile, but there we go. And here we have the 2 barbecue sauces, the Stubbs and the Sticky Fingers. I'm going to be using the Sticky Fingers sweeter barbecue sauce on the Brussels sprouts. I'm just going to take my brush, put it into the bowl of Sticky Fingers, and put a pretty generous coat onto the Brussels sprouts. You may have a problem getting leaves stuck to the brush with the barbecue sauce, but no worries, they'll come off as you brush on the Brussels sprouts. You're going to want to make sure that every individual sprout gets some barbecue sauce on it. A little bit later, once I was done brushing, I added a little more on top just to make sure that every sprout got an even coat. Now we have our bacon with our grease catcher put on our second cooking sheet. And the grease catcher is just going to make sure the grease goes down to the pan. So we have our 5 strips of bacon, and you'll see me here putting it on each crevice. Now you're going to want to put it down on the crevices so that when the grease basically protrudes from the bacon strips, that it's going to go through the holes of the grease catcher and just kind of lay in the cooking sheet as opposed to soaking in the bacon, making it a bit more unhealthy. And, in my opinion, it tastes quite a bit better without a ton of grease on it, because it can kind of be gross to eat all that much grease. So you see me here throwing away the bacon wrapper, and I'm just going to dry the grease off my hands. It's important to wash your hands before making the Brussels sprouts, as well as throughout the process and after, because you're going to get barbecue sauce on it, you're going to get grease on your hands, you're going to get spices on your hands, a lot of stuff on your hands. It's going to get kind of messy. So stay me here with the Stubbs spicier barbecue sauce that I'm going to spread an even coat onto the bacon. The bacon with barbecue sauce is a great combo. Probably my favorite way to make bacon. It adds a lot of color to the bacon, as well as giving it a ton more flavor than you would expect. I've had multiple people tell me this is the best bacon they've ever had when it has the barbecue sauce on it, and it's quite easy. All you need is the brush or even a spoon or a spreading knife and the barbecue sauce. So you'll see me put in the oven at 345 the Brussels sprouts and the bacon. I don't have an exact time for how long I have it in here. It's really up to preference, but just kind of watch for your desired bacon and Brussels sprout cooking. Now, with the finished bacon, I'm going to stack each strip on top of each other. And it's a little hot, so you've seen me at one point here shaking my hand because it's a little painful. But you might want to wait a second for it to cool. And then you're just going to cut small pieces out of the bacon to spread on the Brussels sprouts. And here we go with the Brussels sprouts and the bacon. And last but not least, to make it a little bit more unhealthy, we are going to spread a big coat of the Sticky Fingers barbecue sauce right on top of the Brussels sprouts. Makes it taste a lot better. And it also, if your Brussels sprouts get a little dry, it can just moisten them up a bit. And we'll see the finished product right here. And I'll try just one combo of the bacon barbecue sauce and Brussels sprouts. Delicious.